Yes, my people, this is Vinny's voice, and I'm fortunate to be joined by Biel today. Biel, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. It's an absolute pleasure being here with you. I mean, this man, I'm telling you something. He has to grind. He's up at what time is it for you right now? Four
Well, it's four,
fifteen?
yeah, 4:15. I got up at like what,
Four
3:20 in the
four
morning?
fifteen a.m. a.m. I said, "Are you
Yeah.
sure?" And he was like, "No, yo, I'm okay. I'm gonna do it." So yeah, what a legend. Thank you for having me on,
Well,
brother.
honestly, thank you for giving me this opportunity to interview you. It's an absolute honor. I'll be honest.
No, I said, no. It's the least I can do, man. Least I can do.
So, obviously, you've been in the Misfits game for, I would say, about a year since Misfits 009. I want to take it back to your time before that, because obviously you were studying at university, just like
Mm,
myself. Um,
mm.
so my question to you is, um, did you ever think when you were in university, sitting there in those classes, you were ever gonna make it to where you are at this moment in time?
I think that's a fantastic question. I think maybe it's a time thing. It's a time thing. I didn't think I was going to be in the position I was as soon as I was. I knew I was going to get there. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to reach this position. And I don't want that to come across arrogantly. It's just I'm very confident in my abilities and my skill sets. And I do believe I have the passion and love for it that I knew I was going to get there. But it was more of a time thing. And being the position that I'm in now, I'm very fortunate to be here because I know a lot of people at university and a lot of my friends, for example, have come out of uni looking for work, and I was already in it for the past year whilst I was doing my final year at uni. So yeah, I think that's as you say, a great question. I didn't expect to be there that soon, but I knew I was going to be in this position at some point.
That's good to hear. Honestly, it's a testament to all your hard work. I
Thank
watched another interview that you had. I think it was Misfits Madness, and you discussed, back in those early grind days, you had to stay up all night in the hotel lobby doing your interviews. I mean, not
Yeah.
doing your like edit your interviews. I mean,
Mm.
how difficult you would say that was for you? Because obviously, as you said, you had like interviews all night. Then you had to come back to the hotel lobby, edit the interviews, and I think, as you said, you took the train, like the next early morning train the next day. How difficult was that time for you doing like
It
that
was
that grind?
it was really tough. I was fortunate for that period of time to be doing it with my best friend at the time, Morgan. It wasn't just myself doing it. It was both of us grinding it through, and I will never forget that. That was a big part of my journey. So big shout out to him. We both put the grind there. I had a dream in this. I definitely think my mind was more I wanted to make it than him. I think he was just supporting my goal at that time. So, I will always appreciate that he did that for me. But we just both grinded it out. Whether it was, I remember, was it a Misfits event? I think it was a Misfits event where it was in London, and we couldn't actually find anywhere. We were staying at like the Fighter Hotel because we saved up our money and just said, okay, if we're in the Fighter Hotel, we're gonna get more interviews. And like we're going to see more fighters, build more contacts, etc. So like, okay, we can save up, but we couldn't afford to do fight night, so we could stay there every day. And then on fight night, we're like, okay, we'll just stay at the lobby. We'll just stay at the lobby. We'll be fine. And then the staff said it was fine originally, but then obviously after fight night, the lobby was absolutely packed. And they said, "Oh, do you have a room night right now?" And we said, "No," but they said we could stay in the lobby till early morning. And then they said, "No, you can't stay here." So then we were just walking the streets to find anything available because I was getting so frustrated myself. I was like, man, I can't do this. I was like, are you telling me I'm not going to have anywhere to sleep tonight? Are you telling me I'm homeless? And we just couldn't find anything. Nothing was available because obviously the fight just happened. It was so late. I believe it was like 12 at night when we finished doing all our interviews, or 12:30. So nothing was available. So we actually went to the Hilton and we went to the top floor. Obviously, I do not advise doing this. Do not do this. But we went to the top floor because we knew no one was going to be there. So we went to the top floor, connected to the Wi-Fi because we stayed there beforehand, and we just would work on the floor, like literally on the floor, and just every time the lift went off, we were panicking that someone's going to come out the lift and tell us to get out or shout at us or call the police or whatever. So we just doing out there, just doing the thumbnails, just getting all the thumbnails done, just grinding through whilst he was posted them, etc. And yeah, it was very stressful. Then we did eventually get kicked out, went downstairs, and then we would catch the train at like, I think it was 7 was the first train back to Manchester, and we just sleep on the train. And then the next day was uni, back at it again. So yeah, it was a hustle. I will never forget those days, but I wouldn't change a thing because I'm here now.
Wow. Yeah, genuinely, that's truly inspiring, generally. So yeah. I mean, sort of like, I mean, similar to me, I guess. I have to get up early mornings for these interviews, but again, I don't see this as work. I just see this as fun. So honestly, I do not mind
Absolutely.
at all. So I'd like to talk about the Misfits Boxing as a company. Obviously, I presume
Mm,
you've been a fan, since the
mm,
Joella KSI days. As of
yeah.
say with myself. So, being a part of this company, do you think? And I ask this candidly because obviously influencer boxing has taken a shift from the more sort of, I remember, if you remember back in the day, like Momo FIFA HD doing the floss in the middle of the ring, if you remember that, to
Yeah,
more
yeah, of course.
serious fight. But do you think influencer boxing has lost its sort of magic from those, like, those gimmick fights, those little T Afghan dance, those Momo FIFAs, and has become too serious? Because some people, like the Sidemen, a lot of people in the UK, big influencers, said influencer boxing has become too serious. Do you think that's the case, or do you think influencer boxing has just evolved?
I understand what people are saying. I truly do, and I think it's a very, very valid opinion. But candidly, so it's a natural progression for fighters to eventually get better. Even myself, I started boxing way back in 2017 or 2018. And back then I was terrible as well. And I think that was the goal back in the day, was to sort of give influencers a short period of time and just fight. Here in Spain, I'm thankfully live in Barcelona. Here in Spain, they have a thing called La Velada. And each year the fighters will fight and they have 6 months to prepare. And the skill level is absolutely woeful. It's actually kind of terrible to watch sometimes, but it's an incredible event. I mean, the atmosphere is fantastic because it's what you say. It's like that lower level influencer going at it. But I think there is kind of a massive respect to have for people, especially someone like Foxer G, if you imagine, who grew up with the space, took the boxing seriously, and is now at such a level where I even myself believe that Fox could become a pro boxer. Pro boxer doesn't necessarily mean he will win all the titles and become undisputed, and that's great thing, but he could become a pro boxer in some respects. And I think there is massive respects to that. And I think Mams is doing a great job now at handling the way that there are 3 separate entities: Misfits Pro, Misfits Boxing, and the Misfits Boxing of the lower level league. And we're going to start integrating that, from what I believe anyhow, soon, where we're going to have more separate events dependent on what the skill level is. And I think that's going to be a massive part of the evolution of what Misfits Boxing is. And again, this company is only, what I believe, 2-3 years old.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
everything's going to naturally progress and change. Everyone looks at the good old days, like people used to say, "Oh, I love old KSI." Well, old KSI doesn't exist anymore. It's a new
Yeah.
one, but you still love the new one for its own things, and you hate the new one for some other things as well. It's the same with everything that you do. It all grows, evolves, and I know Mams Taylor, and I trust in Mams Taylor and the rest of the team to put in fantastic events going forwards, and to make the right changes as well to ensure that everyone's entertained always.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you about the Misfits sort of female division. It's just sort of like my own personal question.
Mm.
I would say, if in my opinion, there has been a shortage of female influencer fighters so far
Yeah.
in the Misfits realm. You've always seen, like, obviously you had your Elle Brooke, you have your Julies, all well and good, but obviously once they get to a certain level, they don't really get matched up with influencers. Instead they get matched up with BKSC, or Elle
Of
Brooke
course.
got
Yeah.
matched up with Paige. Obviously that's all well and good, but do you think that could be a bit detrimental to other female influencers who are, I'll say, probably novices in the sport? Because, like, so many people, and even like Carla Jade in, like, what, a second or third fight
Mm.
had a BKSC opponent. So do you think that's a worry for the female influencer boxing space as a whole, or you think it's all fine?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a worry. If anything, it's quite impressive of how good the females can get in a short period of time. Now, I think when you look at boxing as an overall, and even MMA and combat sports, it is primarily male dominated. And that's not saying that there isn't a space for females, but it's primarily male dominated because there is more fights just going on for the guys. There's just more guys that are into that sport. Now that is progressing with the years, and I think although it's our rivals, I want to say that MVP is doing a fantastic job in bringing the female fighters in. I think that's very admirable from them. So there is a progression with that, but if you imagine if the traditional world of boxing is already lacking numbers in terms of how many females want to fight, then now you do an even more higher niche, which is female boxers in crossover, is going to be even less. So yes, it's going to be hard to matchmake them, and I think what Mams is trying to do is create these girls into stars where they just break through to that new level, and I think they're doing a great job at training and getting better, because I think the level is so high that they are able to do it, and I think they've shown in their fights as well that they being able to hang in with these girls. So I don't necessarily think it's worrying. If anything, it's commendable of what they're able to do and their skill sets.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like as I said, like with Carla, third ever fight, and you're fighting a person who practically been fighting all their life, and managed to get a draw as well. It's honestly, very commendable. Like, if you do like pound for pound, like even like the top guy, they haven't even fought, BKFC or MMA guys. Like, very few guys in the scene have actually been able to fight.
And I think that's natural as well, because obviously the male division is going to be higher skilled because there is just more guys that are doing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's just because the level is higher, so I don't want to take away from the guys in that aspect, but then I don't want to take away what the girls are doing because they're not. I mean, when Elle Brooke fought Paige Van Zandt, I was turning to some of my colleagues and I was saying, this is looking tough. Like, Paige Van Zandt looked very sharp that fight. She looked dialed in, locked in. I thought, this might be a long night. And I remember seeing Elle backstage, and I think that was the most, I wouldn't necessarily say nervous, but the quietest I've ever seen her. She's usually like a huge personality, but she was very quiet that night. And she put on such a performance. I personally believe when I watched it ringside, I thought Elle won that fight. But she proved me wrong. So, they're just getting better and better. And I think Elle Brooke is a fucking superstar. And I'd love to see her back.
Yeah, me too, honestly. Yeah. Elle Brooke is honestly like one of the most technical fighters, like, and especially for the progression I remember from Misfits 04, that sort of, her flurry with Faith all the way to now to fight with Paige Van Zandt. It's like the levels in such a short amount of time, honestly, very, very, very commendable. So I want to ask you about sort of the behind the scenes at Misfits. I asked this question to Ben yesterday, and I'll ask this to you as well. When you go and like interview or have like a Misfits fight night, do you have like a pregame before you step out there for fight night, or is it like, I'll just be ready no matter what?
I think it's funny you ask that, because I think I always prepare and I always research into everyone I'm interviewing. Obviously working in it week in, week out, and obviously doing our Misfits news episodes, etc., you have to do a certain level of research and understanding into each fighter, and that comes to the face-off. So by the time you're in fight week, you're already almost prepared. When I first started doing interviews, I actually used to use cue cards. So the person behind the camera would hold cue cards, and it would just be a prompt, for example. So I'd memorize the lines, and I'd have a prompt to know which questions I'm asking, because I didn't know who everyone was back then. I even remember doing Ryan Taylor, and he sort of laughed at my cue cards. And then I did a documentary with him, a year later. Funny how the world works. So I used to use cue cards. Then when I first started off with Misfits, it was relatively nerve-wracking, but I think once the camera's on, once you're rolling, and once you've done it for a long period of time, it almost becomes like a switch. It's like a acting performance. You know what I mean? So you just know what you're doing at that rate. So yeah, I think a lot of research preparation goes into it. I mean, if you saw the amount of papers and documents Ben does during fight week, you'd be blown away. But I think there's a certain level of just natural ability, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but I mean as in you just switch it on. You switch it on, and no matter who they throw at you, if you know them or not. For example, I had Tony Bellew on the Misfits. I believe it was Anthony Taylor versus Darren Till. Tony Bellew was down there. I didn't prepare for that. I didn't know he was going to be there. But you just go there. I know about Tony Bellew, and you just talk, and you see where the conversation takes you, and you just feel natural. If you try to force it, or if you try to prepare too much, I also believe that hinders you massively.
Yeah, honestly, it's a testament to you, because I've been watching your interviews for Misfits, especially whether that be Misfits News or whether that be Fight Night, and it seems that you have that sort of skill level to captivate an audience.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Misfits 22 is coming up, and I asked this question to Ben yesterday about sort of expanding Misfits in America. So, but that's sort of the future. But I want to really talk about the present. Could you give any like sneak peeks into how, you know, Misfits, because it's heavily rumored that it's going to be in America, what changes or what differences Misfits are going to have for this non-pay-per-view show in America as opposed to the non-pay-per-view shows they had in the past in America?
So I don't want to get in trouble for this, so I will be careful the way I navigate myself around this answer. So I don't know what Ben said, so I'm going to try to be as political as I can. From my understanding, from what I know, is not even 100% locked in as of right now when we record this interview, which it is, what date are we? The 4th of June at 8:31. It's not locked in at all yet when the date is or where it will be. Now, there's heavy rumors that it's indicating it may be in America late July, start of August. That is heavily rumored for sure, and I think a lot of people are aware of that. However, what I can tell you is it's not locked in yet, and even location and date could change, and that is honest truth.
I thought I was gonna get you with that question, but
like I'm trying to give you as much of an exclusive as possible, because this is true. From what I'm told, we possibly may know by the end of this week, but we may know next week. I don't know yet, but nothing's locked in, so I can't tell you expect to find out this week or expect to find next week, because we don't know.
Oh no, not a problem, man. All good with that. So I want to ask you another question about sort of your sort of interviewing on Misfits. Obviously, there's a lot that goes on in front of the camera, but obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. What do you think that would shock people that goes on the behind the scenes, especially for a job like yours, that, you know, that would surprise people and be like, oh, I didn't think they had to do that, or I didn't think that was going on behind the scenes?
I think what people sometimes forget is that I work for a promotion. You know, as much of a lot of the time, we want to give you all the exclusive, all the information, and release things at the exact time that I say I'm going to release it. It has to go through a huge approval process, and a lot of things, the majority of times, has to be cut out. You know, either things change behind the scenes, or there's certain information that needs to be withheld till later dates, or whether it's an interview with X, Y, or Z that needs to be looked over by their management before it goes out. You know, that a lot of the time on air can't go out on the night of, because it needs to be reviewed. And, you know, that is because there's a lot of PR that goes into it. There's a lot, it's a business. You've got to understand it's not as easy as when I potentially was doing it on my own, and I can get them to say anything, clickbait the hell out of it, and just clip it, and no matter what, you know, I can make someone look bad, good, or whatever. When you work for a promotion, the promotion needs to make everyone look good, for example, and make sure we're not leaking anything, or, you know, we're not being PR friendly. And I think that's just perfectly natural for any business promotion or boxing promotion to do. So I think, yeah, it's just a lot of approval process. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So when people are there like, oh, where's this, where's that, why hasn't it come out? It's because we're working very hard behind the scenes to ensure that it's all okay to go out.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll wrap up this interview shortly. But I'd like to ask you, I asked this question to Ben. I'm just trying to relate because I literally just had him on yesterday. Obviously Misfits is a very big family, and you and Ben obviously have a very close relationship. Did you expect to form like these sort of close bonds when you first entered the company?
Yeah, so I actually met Ben at the same event I started working, because he was fighting Gabriel Silva then. And I remember really enjoying to interview him because he was just such a natural on camera, and he was just such a great personality. And, you know, I've been able to obviously grow a great friendship with Ben, whether it's at the Misfits events or even when we did the BKFC, etc. I think Ben has such a phenomenal talent, and he's going to go so far in his career. You know, I really have a lot of belief in what he can do. And I think we have a big mutual respect and friendship. And, you know, I built a lot of friendships in the Misfits world and the in the community. You know, I think a lot of people are aware. Chase Demore and I, we hang out a lot. We're very good friends as well. I have some of the production team. One of the production team members is one of my best friends, you know. Riley Osborne, great friend. I'll call a friend as well. Charlie Parsons is always great to see around. I mean, there's so many people that you meet and connect with, and a lot of the fighters that I'm close with. You know, I speak to Anthony Taylor on a regular. I speak to a lot of these guys very regularly through message or call or whatever it is. Obviously, Chase probably being the one I'm most close with. So, yeah, I think it is a family, as you put very well there. And I'm very fortunate to be in the position where I can meet so many amazing people.
Oh, honestly, it's good to see, because honestly, like Misfits, I love like the Misfits family, how like, you know, everyone's like sort of formed a bond, and like at the end of the day, like even though it's business, there's also like, you know, you can still formulate, you know, close friendships as well, which is really good to see. So my last question for you is, I ask this at the end of all my interviews, is what is the best quote or piece of advice you've ever heard or received?
Oh, that is a really good question, and I'm going to need a second to answer that. Depends. I mean, I'm going to keep it to my line of work, because I've received a lot of advice from great friends, but that's nothing to do with work. But I mean, in my line of work, maybe, you know, from the times when I first begun with Ben, and, you know, where he just sort of gave me advice of just going more naturally, not having to force things so much, and not having to stick to a script so much. It's just go with the flow. I think that was a big progression in my own career. I had to be very regimented. Things had to follow the script exactly, but I've learned to go off script, no pun intended. And Ben was a massive help of that. So, you know, I think big up to Ben for doing that. I can't remember the exact words, but, you know, it was roughly along the lines of that.
Oh, thank you so much, Biel, for your time. Yes, my people, another interview in the books. Appreciative of Biel for his time and his thoughts. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you when you're older. Don't go changing. Bye-bye.